On the 1st of June 2019, Mauricio Pochettino led Spurs out onto the Wanda Metropolitano pitch ahead of the Champions League final against Liverpool. Although the Lily-Whites subsequently lost 2-0, it represented the crowning glory of the Argentines' 5.5-year spell in North London that saw the club establish itself in the Champions League and compete for 2 Premier League titles. Fast forward 2 years though, and Spurs look lost. The appointment of Jose Mourinho, the antithesis of the club's "to dare is to do" motto, led to a period of archaic football and an unhappy dressing room that culminated in the Portuguese being sacked just 6 days before the 2021 Carabao Cup final. Over 2 months after his sacking, Spurs are yet to appoint a replacement, with the list of candidates approach growing longer by the week. At a time when the North Londoners needed to show a clear strategy in order to win back fans alienated by Mourinho's tenure and the club's failed attempt to join the cursed European Super League, the club's hierarchy appear completely clueless. Oh, and to make matters worse, the club's best player Harry Kane has said publicly that he wants to leave. Today on FD Explained, we want to analyse how it has come to this. Let's get started. Just 171 days after the 2019 Champions League final, Mauricio Pochettino was removed from his position as manager of Tottenham Hotspur. Chairman Daniel Levy claimed it was a difficult decision and, quote, "not something I ever wanted." But the fact was that Spurs hadn't been playing well for a while. They could only win 3 of their final 12 league games of the 2018-19 campaign, losing to the likes of Burnley, West Ham and Bournemouth. The trend continued at the start of the following season, as Spurs only picked up 14 points from their first 12 games, with a 3-0 thrashing at the hands of Brighton suggesting all was not right in the squad. For years, the players had given everything to Pochettino, pressing teams into submission, working as a unit, but it was simply no longer the case. A move to Wembley while the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium was being developed, at a cost of £1 billion, left the club unable and unwilling to strengthen the first team, as they went 18 months without signing a player, between Lucas Moura's arrival in January 2018 and Jack Clarke's in July 2019. This clearly angered Pochettino, who claimed that when the club can't buy a washing machine, we buy a dryer, in a barely veiled barb at the club's lack of investment in the squad. But it was clear that the club not only needed to buy, but sell. As The Athletic pointed out the month before his sacking, Eriksen had his heart set on a move to Real Madrid, Toby Alderweireld wanted out last year, Danny Rose has nearly left 3 years in a row, and Jan Vertonghen is in his final year. For a side built off the back of a successful defence that conceded just 136 league goals between 2015-16 and 2018-19, a figure topped only by Man City's 130 in the same period, it was clear Pochettino needed a defensive rebuild. One source even told The Athletic, "the place is a regime and they are sick of him," as the players complained about the relentless double sessions and very few days off. Rather than build off their 86-point season in 2016-17, a lack of investment in the squad had frustrated Pochettino and left the squad stale, as they picked up fewer points than Crystal Palace between January 1st, 2019 and October 6th that year. So on the 19th of November, just 5 weeks after Spurs were annihilated 7-2 by Bayern Munich, conceding 7 in a game for the first time since 1996, Daniel Levy decided to pull the trigger and sack Pochettino. Having just got rid of Spurs' most popular manager since Bill Nicholson, Daniel Levy knew he needed to get his next appointment right. And unlike with their current managerial search, he acted decisively, hiring former Chelsea and Man United boss Jose Mourinho within 24 hours to the surprise of everyone. After winning 25 major trophies across a 19-year career up to that point, Levy clearly saw him as the man to end their then 11-year wait for silverware. But the 2-time Champions League winner's stock was declining after messy ends to his tenures at Stamford Bridge and Old Trafford. And with a reputation for big spending on established ready-made stars, which saw him fork out a combined £367 million in his first windows at his previous 3 clubs, he seemed at odds with Spurs' reputation for trusting academy graduates and operating within the club's means. So when Daniel Levy proudly announced to Amazon's All or Nothing documentary that Mourinho was one of the top 2 coaches in the world, it was clear only he believed it. But it would be inaccurate and unfair to paint Mourinho's spell in charge as a complete disaster. Taking over with the club in 14th and 11 points off the top 4, he lost Kane to a serious thigh injury 6 weeks later which saw him miss 14 games, but managed to finish 6th, 7 points off 4th place Chelsea. Given that he had joined a new club mid-campaign and faced a 3-month stoppage for coronavirus, it was a satisfactory season. And when he managed to sign established Premier League stars like Højbjerg and Doherty, a backup to Harry Kane, Lo Celso, Sergio Reguilon, and announced the return of former Spurs superstar Gareth Bale, most expected a promising 2020-21 campaign. And 12 matches in, Lily White's fans couldn't believe their luck as victories over arch rivals Arsenal, Man City and hammerings of Man United and Southampton had Spurs atop the Premier League table. It was a slight false dawn, however. Their results had been promising, but they had drastically overperformed their expected goals at both ends of the pitch, giving them over 6 more points than expected up to that point, the 7th largest overperformance in Europe's top 5 leagues. Not only that, but their 25 points up to that stage was actually 2 fewer than they managed in 2018-19 under Pochettino, and would only have been good enough for 5th in 2019-20. As we all know, things quickly took a turn on the pitch. Caught between 2 diametrically opposed managerial philosophies, Spurs seemed trapped in limbo, unable to finish games off or show the defensive solidity and togetherness that defined the Pochettino era. For the first time, a Mourinho team lost 10 league games in a season, whilst they dropped 20 points from winning positions, the most of any Premier League side. But whilst meek capitulations for the likes of West Ham and Wolves, and disappointing cup exits at the hands of Everton and Dinamo Zagreb, the latter from 2-0 up, suggested all was not right at the club, it was Mourinho's public comments that ultimately forced his exit. His style of confrontational leadership hadn't ended well at Real, Chelsea or Man United, but Mourinho failed to adapt. After a 1-1 draw with Crystal Palace in December, he explained that I told the players what would happen and it happened. Later that month he told Dele Alli he should not create problems for his own team after a mistake against Stoke, and by February he was claiming, "We have problems in the team that I cannot resolve by myself as a coach." By the 4th of April, after another late equaliser, this time by Newcastle, Mourinho told the BBC that it was the same coach, different players, when asked about his side's defensive problems. Unsurprisingly, this constant barrage of criticism didn't go down well with his players, many of whom felt poorly prepared for matches. Jack Pitt-Brooke at The Athletic claimed that as they got closer to every match, the atmosphere was increasingly marked by fear of what might go wrong. Spurs were so fixated on what the opposition might do, they forgot to focus on their own game. He claimed the players quickly grew bored of Mourinho's training, which lacked the intensity of his predecessors, whilst they often found themselves relying on the same attacking moves Pochettino had taught them long after he'd left. One dressing room source went as far to say he sucked the culture out of the club and destroyed what Spurs stood for. And so on the 19th of April 2021, just 17 months on from looking like the cat that got the cream, Daniel Levy decided to sack the increasingly sour Mourinho. So desperate were the hierarchy to end Mourinho's poisonous stint in North London that they not only fired him 6 days before the Carabao Cup final, in the midst of the European Super League debacle, but decided to replace him with a complete novice in Ryan Mason, a 29-year-old former player whose only previous managerial experience was with the Spurs under-19 side. Mason did fine, winning 57% of his 7 games in charge, 6% more than Mourinho, but he was clearly nothing more than an interim. As we all know, the search for a replacement has been nothing short of farcical. Nagelsmann joined Bayern, Flick Germany, whilst Rodgers and Ten Hag committed themselves to their current employers. Pochettino appeared keen on a return, but PSG refused to countenance his departure, and for a brief period it appeared that Conte, a league winner in 4 of his last 5 seasons, would take over, only for talks to break down after The Guardian claimed they grew concerned over his demands and whether he would commit to blooding players. In mid-June it was announced that Spurs, led by their new managing director Fabio Paratici, who had spent the last 11 years working as CFO at Juventus, were in talks with Paulo Fonseca. This didn't go down well. Compared to Pochettino and Conte, their previous 2 targets, Fonseca didn't have the romanticism or the CV, with 1 Portuguese Cup and 3 Ukrainian doubles, not to mention an underwhelming 2021 campaign that saw him eventually replaced by Mourinho, proving unpalatable to the Spurs faithful. But once again the situation changed. Spurs pulled out of the deal, with Fonseca said to be mystified by his treatment as soon as they found out Gennaro Gattuso was having issues with Fiorentina, where he'd been appointed just 23 days earlier. A combustible character with a mixed managerial record with less than 2 years spent at Pisa, Milan and Napoli, Gattuso appeared a strange fit. When his controversial comments made about gay marriage, women in football and his downplaying of racist abuse emerged though, Spurs fans made their feelings known. #NoToGattuso trended on Twitter, and the Supporters Trust contacted the board to voice their disgust at the potential appointment. After committing in May to appointing a manager whose values reflect those of our great club, Daniel Levy was left with no choice and the Gattuso deal was off. In 9 days' time, Spurs' non-Euros players will be returning to pre-season to find a club in the midst of a crisis. Their public pursuit of at least 8 managers has got them nowhere, there is very little speculation of any potential incomings to improve their 7th place finish, and Harry Kane, a player who's been directly involved in 41% of their league goals over the last 5 seasons, has already been subject to a bid from Man City. They might have one of the best stadiums and training grounds in the world, But Spurs' last 2 years show that without a clear strategy and the right appointments, things can unravel very, very quickly. We wish them luck. It certainly feels like they're going to need it. So guys, that was our FD Explained on what has gone wrong with Spurs. What did you guys think of it, and what do you want to see us cover next on FD Explained? Let me know in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel and click on screen for another great FD video. And I'll catch you next time.